In life, you need the adversity, the ones, in order to truly experience what the tens feel like when you win. Most of us are out there doing the best that we can. And so just give yourself a little bit of grace. You're doing all right.
So I am so excited to have Chris Nicolaysen with us on the show today. Not only is he an attorney with the Springs Law Group in Colorado Springs, Colorado, but he is a husband. You are a father. You love watching wrestling, Hallmark movies,
Yeah.
Kevin Hart comedies, which I have to say, I also love watching Kevin Hart. And then I thought it was so fun. You love playing video games with your nephew.
Uh-huh.
And you actually share very openly about your journey to becoming an attorney and just the challenges that kind of came along with that, which I personally find very inspiring. I think we all have challenges at one way or another, but I really resonated with some that you've shared on other podcasts. So it's that inspiration and your story and your openness that really wanted me to have you on the show today. So thank you for joining. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. So I would actually love to give you the opportunity to start talking about your firm and what you do in your practice and we'll kind of start there. So
Yeah, so I'm the CEO and owner of Springs Law Group. We're here in Colorado Springs. We do plaintiffs' personal injury cases, primarily motor vehicle. We do some dog bite, slip and fall cases, things like that. We've been open for about 7 years now, have gone through a lot of different iterations and transitions in the 7 years, but ultimately it's a team of about 16 of us right now, from attorneys, down to reception and intake. We've got the gambit in between. We've got some in-house workers and some people that are remote. COVID was, kind of beneficial to learn how, as an
yeah.
owner, to let people kind of find their balance and place within that as well. And
Mhm.
so there's 4 attorneys in total right now at the firm, and that's including myself. And yeah, we started out originally doing kind of a gambit of different areas. So some
Right.
family law, some estate planning, and personal injury, but then ultimately have whittled it down to just personal injury.
Okay. And what changed to where you decided to focus in on personal injury?
It was actually attending a mastermind. So a good friend of mine, John Fisher, runs a mastermind called the Mastermind Experience that I went out to in year one. I went out with my wife. We went out to DC and met a bunch of really great law firm owners out there. And then a lot of those owners were doing personal injury, but it was also talking about the mentality of an owner where, it's kind of like the jack of all trades, master of none mentality.
Right. Right.
And so it's better to pick a niche and kind of become really, really good at that. And Jim Collins in his book talks about the hedgehog theory, in Good to Great, and that idea of you can do a bunch of things, which is like an inch deep and a mile wide, or you can
Yeah.
do one thing really well, which is an inch wide and a mile deep. And so it just depends on which way you wanted to go, and that's the way I've chosen to go.
And personal injury just stuck out from all of them that was the route you wanted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I myself had done family law for a while, and that just ultimately it wears on you from an emotional standpoint quite a bit.
Mm,
And
yeah.
then here, there's a real feel of actually truly being able to help people get compensated when they didn't do anything wrong. They're sitting there maybe at a stoplight waiting to go get groceries or pick up their kid from soccer, and then they get
Yeah.
hit and their life gets flipped upside down. So it's kind
Yeah.
of helping them swing it back in that
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. And then I know you shared in some of the other podcasts that you actually didn't get into practicing law or wanting to go into that realm not until you were in your mid 30s,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
had a multitude of other things that you had been doing
Mhm.
up to that. What was it I mean, what was it specifically though that drew you to law school though? Why law
Oh,
school?
so I had a bunch of friends. So at 30, I think I was 34 when I had just been non-renewed as a school teacher. And I thought that was the dream job. That was not the reality or meant to be. And then I'm sitting there in my car thinking the one day, well, what should a 34, almost 35-year-old do with 2 daughters who are, right around junior high age,
Right.
you and the wisest thing is to go to law school because that's what any normal person would choose to do. But no, the reality is I had many friends that were like dentists and orthodontists, anesthesiologists, doctors, what have you. And I thought to myself, I'm like, if I tried to do that at that point in my life, I would have to go back and go all the way back to hit certain undergrad credentials, right?
Yeah.
But the great thing is with law school is you can have any 4 year, and as long as you score well on the LSAT, you can get in and you can go to law school. And so
Oh,
that was kind of the goal at that point. It was looking at my option as from a time value standpoint and an ROI standpoint is what would ultimately be more beneficial in the long run.
yeah. Yeah, I will say that in some of the podcasts I had listened to previously when you shared about your teaching job, that actually hits really well with me too. My same thing actually happened to my husband while I was in process of finishing my degree to teach,
Yeah.
actually
Oh,
long
wow.
ago. And the same thing happened to him. He was a brand new teacher. It was his first year and he was let go before the year finished actually because they had
Wow.
huge budgeting problems.
Hmm.
And anybody who hadn't been there for at least, I think it was 3 or 4 years minimum, everybody was let go.
Wow.
So they did mass, yeah, layoffs, but it was a pretty huge thing because he was our main breadwinner at the time.
Yeah.
And it really throws you into, I gotta think, like I gotta do
Yes.
something else. But yeah, you don't want to start completely over, but you're like,
Right.
how can I make the best of this situation and what makes the most sense?
Well,
He went medical,
yeah,
but
it forces
um,
you to adapt, right? Like it really
yeah,
does. I mean, you have to
yeah.
adapt immediately.
And we had small kids at the time too. Our kids were much smaller, but yeah, it forces you mini freak out for a moment.
Yes.
You can't help it. It's
Yep.
it's involuntary,
Yeah.
but then you're scrambling to think, I gotta figure this out because you have your spouse and you have your kids and everybody's kind of
Hmm.
depending on you. And yeah, and I think a similar situation. We had recently moved and guess who had to try to figure out a way to stay as long as you could and then also move out because
Right.
I mean, what can you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, what a challenge. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I couldn't imagine doing it again. I'm glad I'm not
No,
in that position.
no,
But
absolutely. Absolutely.
but yeah, I didn't realize though that with law school, any four degree, and technically as long as you score well, you can move forward. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So it's
Okay.
generally it's any 4 year degree. So your bachelor's without specific prereqs. I mean, obviously there's certain degrees where it makes more sense to do it.
Sure.
But my daughter ended up going and she was just licensed last year. But she has an undergrad and she's a music major, an undergrad in euphonium, which is like a baby tuba. And
Okay.
so, but still got into law school, with that undergrad.
Oh
And
wow.
so
Good
I have
for
an undergrad in
her.
communications. And so, yeah, it varies. So usually a lot of them, it's like political science, right? Or
Yeah,
philosophy, other
that's what
things
I
like
would
that. So
think. Right.
that's where you end up with that piece of it. But
Yeah.
mostly it's the 4 year degree plus the LSAT score.
Oh, okay. How
Yeah.
long did law school take you additionally once you got started?
So the regular program of a regular full-time program is 3 years. And then that's what it took me. But I did my first year away from Colorado. I did it out in
Yes.
Ohio at Toledo, and
Okay.
then ended up moving back after first year. And then there's a whole story with that I'd be happy to
Yeah.
explain
Well, I'm
if you
gonna
got
tell
time.
you, as I told you, I listened to some of your other podcasts, which is
Yes.
why and I truly enjoyed them because you are so open
Yeah.
about your journey. But I mean, yeah, you spent that year though away from your family.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
can't imagine how incredibly difficult that is. I mean, it sounds like great, I have all the time I need to study and do all these other things, but there's this
Sure.
huge component. It's a huge chunk of your life is just not with you.
Right.
That had to be incredibly difficult.
Yeah. Very hard. And
Yeah.
I think as I look back now, I mean, obviously there's time that I don't get back. So, which is why I want to, do my best to have experiences with my kids and my wife now. And so
Yeah.
to show that the sacrifices were worth it. And so that's the goal right there in the long run. And so,
Yeah.
but yeah, very, very, very hard. And so
Oh,
oddly enough, too, my wife ended up getting, I think it was the week that I was starting my first year finals, she ended up getting rear-ended.
ugh,
Um, and so just out of the blue, it just happened. And so they always say too, right around that time of finals, there's something that'll throw you off course a little bit.
there's
And
something in the
that happened
universe
to be
that's
ours.
just
Yeah.
gonna mess
Yeah.
with you a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's gosh, that's not
Right.
fun.
Yeah.
And you work with your wife now, right?
I do. So she's actually, so about a year and a half ago, she decided herself that she wanted to go to law school. So she's actually in a part-time hybrid program in Minneapolis. So she goes one week, either once or twice a semester, depending upon the semester, and then the rest of the time is done here online. And so she's actually out for the week right now, but then she works part-time with us as well at the moment.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. That's
Yeah,
always been my dream too, that I was like, I just want my husband to work with me because then
yeah,
you're getting the job done, but you're getting to spend that time together still. I
yeah,
mean, I'm sure there are moments where it's just absolutely nuts and you're just like, I need my space. But I mean,
sure.
for the most part, though, it's great if you can do both, I think. I think it's
I think
great.
so too. I've talked to friends who are like, there's no way that I could ever do that. I couldn't work with my spouse, but for me and her, it works out really, really well. We think differently,
Mhm.
and that's totally okay. But
Yeah.
in the different roles, it works out really, really well.
Well, that's good. Then you complement each other well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure that's why it works because you have those differences.
Right.
I think
Absolutely.
the same thing is true, yeah, with my husband. We're very different personalities, and yes, it can create conflict and debate, but that's a good thing. You hear these
Right.
other perspectives. It's important you don't have yes people throughout
Oh,
your life all the time.
right.
You need that opposition. You
Trust me,
do.
she'll be the first person to say no. Like
Yeah.
she'll stand in the line and jump to the front of the line just to say no to me.
Awesome,
Absolutely.
awesome. Well, that's exciting for her. Well, congratulations to her for going to
Yeah.
school. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Is there, I would love to hear if you wouldn't mind sharing if there's a particular case that really just kind of sticks with you or one that kind of stays top of mind. Do you have any cases where it's something that kind of you had a situation that occurred or whether it's the client's story that just you feel like this is something I'm probably going to remember forever and it just sticks with you?
So I think it's I mean there's obviously that you have certain cases where like this, I've got a case that goes way, way back to the very beginning when I was doing family law, but it's trying to teach people what it's like and what to say when you're in this, on the witness stand.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that there's prep work that goes along with that because this is something that people generally don't do. And
Hmm.
so I had a restraining order case way, way back in the day, and we were prepping our client who was the one that filed it. And then ultimately, she wanted to say like, that the person that had it against them, ended up, and she stood up out of her chair and is like, they were peeking in my window just like this. And we're like, you can't do that on the stand, So we prep the heck out of her and just tell your story. Sit there, say the words, but please don't jump up out of your seat to like show this
Yeah.
visual that you think, will
Is
be helpful.
necessary.
Yes. So then we get to the day of the hearing, and ultimately the same thing happens. She ends up saying it too. She's like, and they peeked up and gets up out of her chair, and we're just like, oh, heck. So as much as you can prep and you can say that, well, you've done our part, sometimes people really truly believe that if the judge or the jury just hears my story, they will believe me over anyone else. But the reality is there's a whole nother side that they need to hear as well. And
Mhm.
so it's also not theater. A good case generally too is one where people will walk out. I've had witnesses and other family members walk out of certain cases, and then they look at us and go, yeah, that was really boring. That wasn't like anything I see on TV. And
Right.
because it's not,
Yeah.
Harvey Specter's not slamming, saving the day or doing anything like that right now and there. This is just
Mhm.
proving a point and proving the law. And
Yep.
so, and I think that that's what's, fascinating is one that just like pings in my head is just is preparation is vitally important, when you're working with somebody because you don't
Mhm.
want them to be up on the stand and understand like the ins and kind of like something coming to them, so you're kind of helping guide them along the way. I would say the other important thing too that I always think about is, trying to set realistic expectations with
Mhm.
clients, and especially as you walk in here in personal injury, is coming up with a reasonable range. Obviously, there's a dollar amount that's said when you're opening,
Right.
and that's all sounds great, but that's your grand slam home run, if you hit it out of the
Right.
park. Well, and then your worst, and then you got to talk to him too. Well, what's the worst case? Your worst case could be zero, or it could be worse than that because if the defendants have put a statutory offer on and you lose, you could have to pay their attorney's fees and costs.
Yeah.
So it could be in a negative realm. So now you have these two ends. Now it's about getting them to a middle and a range usually. So I like people to try to think of that range so that then nothing from this emotional roller coaster that's going to happen. And this can be during mediation, it can be during trial itself or what have you. But any of those emotional roller coaster pieces, then they're already aware up here emotionally on kind of, oh no, they told me that this could have been, that they were going to try pulling this or that this was
Right.
going to happen. But I've still got this range at least of reasonableness. So I
Mhm.
don't look like somebody that's just, going out there just for a payday.
Yeah. No, that's good. And you're right. The prep is so important. And even folks that I know that work as they to do expert witness work, even or anything like
Mhm.
that, the biggest thing that they always struggle with is they want the prep or they're nervous about the prep, and so it's a conversation. And I always let them know this is a conversation with you and the attorney who has retained you or who wants you to go have these conversations because
Yeah.
every attorney is different, every expert is different. You need to make sure you're on the same page, you're
Yep.
communicating well with each other. If you're uncertain of things, just ask. You're not going to look terrible or whatever. It's best to talk it out now
Yes.
before you get there. So the prep is, yeah, incredibly important. Yeah.
Well, and it's one thing, like we have a trial going on right now where and I've been getting some updates from it, but I find that a really good expert or a really strong expert too is one that can really stick to the facts,
Mhm.
not veer off, but also not get emotionally charged one way or the other, and
Yeah.
just really keep things fact neutral without feelings. And so then, as
Mhm.
we know, then, the other side will get up and try to make them, and discredit them or do what have you. But the reality is if you can just hold to what you know and what your area of expertise is and just
Mhm.
stick to that. There's a whole thing that one of my coaches talks about quite a bit, which is facts, not feelings. So as long
Yeah.
as we take facts and a good expert is one that'll just hold true to those facts. Nope, this is it. And just really kind of be able to control it, but in a way too that is almost so content neutral that it's not even boring, but it's like, no, I've said it. This is how it is. And
Yeah.
that way, too, the jury doesn't ever doubt that they're not sure about what they're talking about. Because
Mhm.
when you get them to, when the emotions are going up and down, then they might start to waver and go, do they really know? Because then
Yeah.
this person's getting to them. So
Do you find that that is actually pretty challenging with your experts that you've used is to have them not get emotionally charged?
There's some. I think it depends. Again, I think it might be either personality, it could be the business, the area that expert practices in, or
Mm.
it could be whatever their sign is. I don't know, but it just depends
Okay.
on and I'm totally kidding about the sign. But no, it just I think it depends on the person and the individual, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I've seen some kind of what I would say veer off script a little bit. And sure, on
Mhm.
redirect, you can get back in and try to like kind of bring them back into the
Yeah.
fold or what
Guide
have
them
you a little
back, yeah.
bit. Yeah, but sometimes you can't unring the bell, and so that's what makes it really
Yeah.
hard, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That is
and
tough.
I'm a believer too, just in my own personal life with the team at the business too, is that you're never wrong by taking the high road. And so I just think that the high road would be the way to go generally too, even on the witness stand.
Yeah.
Uh, and there's a
Absolutely.
lot of stuff too, obviously, because it's testimony though, I mean, it's still stuff you're saying and it's part of a record. And
Yeah.
so I've seen some crazy things said on the record that people don't ever want to have repeated, but it's part of a court record.
Once it's there, it's there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very tough.
Yeah.
Well, with your personal injury cases and how you've kind of narrowed that down from doing the other practice areas, what is the biggest frustration or struggle you have with dealing with the medical aspect of your cases?
Um, honestly, I would probably say over anything else would be, I think from the medical, there's probably a few things, right? So there's always frustrations, but
Yeah.
generally in talking to my team, it's records. It's whoops. It's
That's okay.
it's so records would be one of the first things I would talk about in the sense that this time gap of records and
Um,
the that movement piece, right? So when we
mm-hmm.
talk about a consistency on how we want to kind of, because we have a built-in process that during treatment, we'll reach out every 2 weeks and check in on our clients and just see how they're doing and see how treatment's going and what have you.
Oh, that's
That's
good.
fine.
Hmm.
And so that works. Then during records, it slows down a little bit, right? We'll keep them informed as to what records we've ordered, when we get them. But sometimes that when we get them can be instead of here, it's like
Takes
out
a
here,
while.
and even as much
Yeah.
as we check or what have you. And so I'd probably say that's one of the bigger frustrations in that sense from an administrative standpoint.
Mhm.
Other pieces would be is your general, um, I think lack of looking at things from certain providers as a global picture for the client, instead of just what their individual practice area is, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah.
Because the client as a whole needs maybe a lot more than
Yeah.
just, to use as an example, just chiropractic or just PT or just massage or just dry needling or just injections or and I'm as a former teacher, it's one of those things to me. I think it's important that we educate our clients and let them know, through the process as a whole, and I do think that, I'm not a doctor and it's one of those things too, or a medical care provider. It's just
Mhm.
really important for them to really work cohesively together because as a team to actually help that one individual get better. So instead
Mhm.
of like basically holding on to that client, like, hey, no, no, they're mine. I think
Right.
it'd be more beneficial for those humans to kind of go through. Now, again, there's a saying out there too, right? You don't know what you don't know. Maybe they
Mhm.
don't know, but then probably this isn't the field that those people should be in at that point if you don't know, or there's other avenues or education or resources out there that could help people figure it out. If
Yes,
that,
I think sometimes collaboration between the providers can be tricky.
yeah,
Especially, I mean, if you're in one healthcare system, that's one thing, and it should
right.
actually be pretty seamless and easy. It should,
Mhm.
since everybody is kind of able to communicate. But
Yeah,
I will say that I think in some of the experience with some of the cases that we've assisted on in our firm, it's when you have those clients that are seen at different healthcare systems because maybe they're just not in their local area at the moment when they are receiving treatment for something. So when you have those things a little more broken up, it's a little bit trickier to get that collaboration and that cohesive
yeah.
picture on there. But not impossible, but it is trickier for
It's like
sure.
playing a
But yeah.
really bad game of telephone, right? Where
Yeah.
the chords are like disconnect. So instead of just the straight line chord from here to here,
Mhm.
it's like there's a cutoff and you're having to go over here. And so it's like maybe you miss this piece of it because of the different, avenues of,
Mhm. Yeah.
healthcare provider, what have you, that could mess things up a little bit.
Yeah. It definitely makes it a little bit tricky. But you said you had 16 people, I think you said on your team. So I'm sure you
Uh-huh.
have your process that was probably pretty streamlined at this point, though, to where you have someone different that's kind of addressing different areas to kind of help minimize those kind of frustrations where you're missing records or you're keeping tabs and you're getting everything that you need.
Correct, as much as possible, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we try within each thing. So everybody has a role specific job, right, within what they're doing. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's incredibly important to have a streamlined process like that. So it's
Yeah.
great. I'm glad you have that set up because that right there helps to eliminate a lot of frustrations you could
Right.
be experiencing. So
Oh,
it's a
totally.
good thing you have that set for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, I also wanted to ask you to kind of switch gears a little bit is because I see you've got some nice ink on your arms
Uh-huh.
there. Now, was that something I could have sworn I had heard in one of your talks before that you actually got those not when you were real young, like not like right out of when you could, but you were a little bit older before you started getting them. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, I got them in my early 40s was my first one.
Oh, really? And
Yeah.
what kind of got you started for your first one?
So the first one was actually a group tattoo that all four of us have together.
Of the
So
attorney?
no, me, my wife, and my two daughters.
Oh,
And
your
so
family. Oh,
it's a
how fun.
family. Yeah. So we've
So do
all
you all
got the
have the
same
exact
one.
same thing?
The exact same thing. Yeah, just in
Oh,
different spots, but we've all got the same one. So
okay.
it's just
Because I
I don't know if
yeah,
I can actually, yes. So it's this right here. So it's my
that
wife's
piece.
first initial, the G, my two girls, and
Oh,
myself.
those are their initials.
Yeah.
Whose idea was that one? Was it
We
your
all came up
daughter's?
with it together, and so we
Okay.
just kind of roundtabled it. But it was one where we were thinking about doing the original Powerpuff Girls with Professor X,
Oh,
but
wow.
but
Yeah.
that would have been, but we didn't end up doing that. So then yeah, we just started with that, and then
That would have
things
been
have
much
kind of
more
expanded.
intricate.
Yeah,
For
yes,
sure.
yes, absolutely.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
My husband and I, we have some as well, and so we have a few that match
yeah,
as well. But my kids are too young, so they can't have any yet. They're too
yes, yes,
well, one of them's old enough for sure, but
yeah.
no idea in his head right now,
Right, right,
but yeah, but same. So we have some too. It's just I thought it was interesting that you got started later on.
right.
Because it seems like most folks they get started when you can. You're like, I'm just gonna do it
Yeah,
because I can.
right.
Um, that's how my first one was. It was just because I could.
Yeah,
Excuse me. And so, I mean, but little by little over time, then you just kind of
you
you,
just
you
keep adding
collect a
on a
little
little bit.
more, collect a
Yep.
little more,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
so. Oh, but that's fun. Do any of yours have any special meaning other
I
than I mean that one with your family is really nice, but
That one does quite a bit. There's like let's see, I don't know. There's a movie out there that we just got this. It's Korean or South Korean for Inyeon, which means destiny between two people. So my wife and I have that as a matching.
oh,
We have matching koi fish. Her and I do. And then yeah, I took a chaplain class back whenever I was younger on and in undergrad, and so I've got a chaplain tattoo right here.
oh,
I'm a Washington Nationals and Capitals fan, and so I've got
okay.
those on my back for whenever they won their championships. Um, yeah,
You have
just
some
a
sports
bunch
ones
of things.
then. Yeah, my
Yeah.
husband has a few sports. We actually have one that matches. I have one on here.
Oh, nice.
I know you can't see it
Yes.
great,
Uh-huh.
but it's Chinese, so it's supposed to be home and family. And I always
Okay.
tell people, I don't speak Chinese though, so for all I know, they could have put like ham sandwich. And
Yes,
so I always
yes.
joke with people, but I've had a few people say, no,
That's
that's
great.
accurate.
Right.
But and he's got his on his wrists.
Nice.
So I know I always had to hide it when I worked at the hospital. He still does work there, but
Right.
his are on his wrist, so his gloves when he
Yep.
gets covered. So but yeah, we have a few matching there too. But
Nice.
yeah, it's kind of fun, especially when you're
It
doing
is.
that with, with your family or with your spouse. It's kind of
Yes,
fun. We've
absolutely.
got some sporty ones and under my ring on one of our anniversaries. I have something there for him and he's got mine. So
Oh,
yeah, we have
nice.
a few of those too. Yeah.
Nice.
It's just it when you do it, I think when you're older and you do it, it's just more fun. I think when you're younger and you do it, you're just pushing yourself to get something because you want to do it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a little less intention behind it.
I think there's like
Um,
the younger ones always remind me of the Friday the 13th or the put a quarter in the bubblegum machine to get your tattoo kind of
right.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, my very first one, it's not a great one. It's
Yeah.
not. And it literally was
Yeah.
a show me a book and I'm gonna pick one. And I
Yeah.
did. And
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean,
it's so lame.
I love Instagram these days for it too, on finding an artist and finding what kind of work they do. They put a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
stuff on Instagram for it. And so I think
Oh.
if you're somebody who's looking, that's a good way to search. And
Oh,
so,
well, now you just gave me a tip because at some
so
point I keep telling my husband I'm going to turn this into like a little half sleeve or I'm going to do
yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And I always talk about it, but I don't actually do anything toward it
Yeah.
because I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know who I would go to. So I just don't think about it, but
Yeah.
I
Instagram's
just don't
awesome.
think about it. So is there anything though that you maybe had a recent milestone or a recent achievement or anything that you've had in your life that you're particularly proud of that you'd like to maybe share with us?
Well, it's an interesting time. I mean, we just hit our 7 year mark, and so very, very proud of that.
Yeah.
Um, Interesting time of like massive changes within the firm. Myself and my partner separated at the end of last year. Not
Oh,
proud of that, but it was just it happened, and that's okay.
yeah.
Respect him for being able to move on, and that's everybody's got their path, and so it's, he definitely helped. He was a critical member too in helping build up, where we are today. So
Yeah.
it's, from that milestone piece of it is that kind of stuff. I mean, we've consistently grown every year for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
And so it was growing from anywhere from, we would for the last, I think it was prior to last year, we had doubled our revenue every year for like 3 years in a row.
That's
And so
amazing.
that was great, and just
Yeah.
absolutely fabulous. But the thing I think over anything else too is just getting really intentional about the team members, who we have
Mhm.
currently, and really working with them not only on what their skill sets are, but also giving them the space that they need to have a voice in how to shape their roles within the firm as well. And
Oh
so
yeah.
for me, I have zero desire to micromanage or control everything that happens day in and day out. And so I think it's important that the team understands that ultimately that they get hired at a job for a reason, and that that's massively important. And so it's those kind of things, and just putting myself in rooms where with other CEOs that are at levels much higher than myself, that I can learn from them to kind of take that experience back in to help the firm move forward in that sense.
Yeah. Well, it
So
sounds like this is a good opportunity though for you to, yeah, kind of reevaluate how things are and how you'd like them
yeah,
to be. And
absolutely.
um, having a team with the ability to have autonomy in their roles,
Mhm.
I think is incredibly important.
Yeah.
The folks who I have on my team, everybody works remotely. Nobody is right where I am.
Oh, that's
And so
lovely.
that autonomy piece is huge. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, I'm here to support, of course, and I'm sure I know you are too. You support your team and
Right.
you're there as a resource and you're there to make sure they can get their work done. But to have a team that is truly autonomous and knows how to do what they're doing and to be able to trust in their abilities is
Right.
huge. It's
Right.
huge. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you
And
can't really grow without that. So,
right. I completely agree. I mean, I know, so two things with that is on autonomy. There's Daniel Pink wrote the book Drive. I don't know if you've read it or not, but it's I
not.
highly recommend it. He mentions like there's three core concepts, but one of them is the autonomy piece of it within your team members. And it's an interesting read. And then Dan Martell, who wrote Buy Back Your Time, he's got a rule called the 1-3-1 rule,
Mhm.
which is basically any of your team members can come to you and say, hey, I'm struggling with this one problem, right? So here's my issue. But generally, what do most bosses or managers end up doing is we just say, okay, let me solve your problem for you right now.
Right.
Just because if I do that immediately, then, I can get back to what I was doing.
Go away. Right.
You can move
I
on.
can get back to it.
But the three actually becomes then when they have that problem, they have to come with three solutions that they've thought of. And then they come to you and say, okay, well, I have this problem. I've thought of these three solutions. And
Mhm.
then your next question is, well, which one of those solutions do you believe is the strongest and why? And then they go, well, I think option A is probably the best of the three. Well, then you would probably say, well, great, go try A. It sounds awesome. And if A doesn't work, then guess what
Try
you've got?
B.
You got B and C. So I think the 1-3-1 is a really nice way to not only still give them autonomy, but it also helps them become critical thinkers within their own space and their own
Mhm.
sphere of what they have to do. Because it's also that thing too of like, if they do come to you and you solve the problem, or they go, hey, I have this problem, I need you to fix it right now. Then, one thing that I've heard Dan say is this idea too, though, of like, well, if I fix it, then why are you here? I hired you to do a certain thing? So if I
Right.
solve this issue, what am I paying you to do?
Yeah,
And so it's just that kind of, it's a different school of thought on thinking about it instead
it
of
is.
just how quickly can I shoo it off to the side. No, the rule here is you've got to make sure that you figure it out.
Yeah, well, I would say that that's actually incredibly helpful, I think, even for me, because my team is great. I mean, we're not a huge team, but my
Right.
team, I mean, we can handle a lot of work between us, but a lot of them, I mean, because it is my business, they do come to me with the problems. And I will tell you that usually what I'll do is I usually provide options, and be honest, I do. And then I take so much time explaining the whys behind the
Mhm.
options. And then I want them though to run with it and be like, so for your situation, what do you think is best? But I've already put in the work and I'm supplying all those things
Right, right.
before I'm telling them, now what do you think is the best option to take?
Yeah,
And so, and I will tell you that just it kind of hits right now because as we're growing and getting bigger, there's more work, there's more scenarios, there's more things going on. And so with everybody continually, here's my situation, and if I'm putting in that same amount of time and energy and effort for more things, it takes so much time away from me.
yeah,
So that is actually very helpful for me
yeah.
to be like, you know what, let me let you work through it first. You
Right.
work through that first, and then you come to me. So that's actually great. I'm gonna steal
Yeah.
that.
Please
I'm gonna
do.
use that.
Please do. And
I'm
I
gonna
steal
steal
it
it.
too. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, now I know, I mean, with your practice, it can get incredibly stressful. I know you're very busy, but what kind of things are you implementing for your own self-care to kind of get your balance back and to kind of help you de-stress, outside of work?
Yeah. So I go to the gym quite often. And then my wife and I get an in-person deep tissue massage every 2 weeks.
That's
I
wonderful.
recommend it. I recommend if you know a chiropractor or what have you, they usually have a massage therapist, see if they'll do it. They come to the house and it's a good way to go. It's nothing crazy expensive or anything like that, but super helpful. I'll be 49 this year. So that I find very, very helpful.
The chiropractor or
Well,
that
I do
with the
both. I
massage?
do chiro and massage, but And so I try to do each of those every 2 weeks. And so I think they're both helpful in that sense. And especially because like whenever you're at a desk all the time, you end up
Yeah.
with your shoulders brought in. And so it's a really nice way to kind of open things up a little bit and help your posture out quite a bit as well. The gym is just a good time to kind of, back away from everything a little bit. We'll keep working towards a goal and what have you. But, as I'm at the gym, there's a great app that I listen to called the Mindset app. It's got talks from, David Goggins, Hermosi, others that I listen to quite often just on repeat. And then, I'm a business junkie on the business side of it. So that for fun,
Yeah.
I think about, eat, and consume the business side of all the time and absolutely
Yeah.
love it. I just did a thing. So I went to an in-person mastermind with Dan Martell a little last year, and then he mentioned this book called The 12-Hour Walk by Colin O'Brady. Colin was the first man to individually walk Antarctica from coast to coast.
Wow.
And he was doing it in a race against a guy from Britain, and Colin ended up beating him. But he's done some other extreme things. So Colin came up with something that just a regular human could do. And so last Saturday, I ended up doing the 12-hour walk. And so walk for, 12 hours. And
12 hours.
yeah, but it's you walk for 12 hours though with no music, no electronics.
Just be present.
It's just you with you for 12 hours.
Oh boy.
And so you're
I'd have a
trying to
hard time with that.
you come up with certain, ideas and things like that. So it's actually more of a mental challenge.
Yeah.
I've done 75 hard and completed that, and other things like that too, just to try to keep on working on certain self-improvement pieces, but then just day in and day out for that kind of stuff. I played Fortnite with my brother, with his kid whenever he's around. And then, just basic stuff, just relax.
Just
Nothing
stuff
crazy.
that's not work. So you can
All right.
just unplug for a little bit and take your
Yeah.
brain off. And
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah. So you're into a lot of it sounds like where you have like motivational, whether it's talks, sayings, quotes, things
Mhm.
like that.
Yep.
I'm very similar. I surround myself with all kinds. I have post-it notes everywhere of just
Hmm.
like little sayings. So in those moments when I am frustrated, when you kind of just like you sit back and you just stare somewhere else,
Right.
I'll see something.
Yep.
There's something right there. There's something here. There's
Yeah.
something. It's all over. So, actually, from some of your podcasts, I actually wrote down a few new ones
Okay.
from listening to yours. And one thing that was one favorite, you were talking about 5 tips for like changing your mindset
Uh-huh.
from like the middle
Yep.
class mindset.
Yeah.
And it was saying that we all have a seat
Uh-huh.
because we all have value. We all have value to give. And so that one, like, I was like, man, that hit me really hard because I
Yeah.
feel like I spend a lot of time motivating others, but
Uh-huh.
I don't have an external motivator for myself. So I have to work
Yeah.
really hard and I seek out all these things because, I'm like, I got to keep mine going because, I'm
Right.
spilling it out for everybody else. But yeah, so I saw that one and I was just like, yep, I need that one. I need that one to be here
Thanks.
too. And then
Yes.
I think you'd mentioned another from I wasn't sure his last name, Chuck, and I thought you said Boyd.
Oh, Chuck
Chuck,
Boyd, who's an
it is,
attorney.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so he was talking about like sometimes those things where you think it's the worst thing in the world and it
Yeah.
ends up actually being one of the best. It's
Mhm.
like a course correct. It
Yes.
just you think things are going great, but it just course corrects you and you have no idea where you're going to end up. But then once you get to this new destination, and it's so true. I've had so
Well,
many course corrects
yeah,
and
and
it's
it's
so
like
true.
there's a great actors table thing on, I think you can find it on Instagram, on a reel of Tom Hanks, and he's on a table with like Jamie Foxx and De Niro and some others, and Hanks has that line, and he's like, "This too shall pass." He's like,
Yes, I've
"You think
seen that.
you've seen it, yeah?"
I
So
have.
he's like, you think things are hard right now, this too shall
Yeah.
pass. You
This
think
too
things
shall
are going
pass.
so great right now,
Yep.
this too shall pass. He's
Yep.
like, so that's just it, right? We all ebb and flow. And so
Yeah.
just in that moment when things are going, but it's just that question then of what do you do during the moments of adversity? Because if we
Hmm.
were all just in comfort phase the whole time, and
Yeah.
it wouldn't be great, and it's an interesting thing that Colin actually in his book talks about that. He's like, he did a sailing trip, a man-made sailing or boat trip from the tip
Hmm.
of South America down to Antarctica. And he
Wow.
talks about there were moments where it was horrendous. Like they were squeezed in just tight and
Yeah.
just waves and everything. he goes, but then when we got, he's like, so he defined those as ones. So right on a scale of 1 to 10, those were ones.
Yeah.
And then they get to Antarctica and he's like, it's a 10. He's like, if I would have just taken a helicopter and flown into Antarctica, maybe it's a 6, maybe it's a 7, but it'd never be a 10. Like in life, you need the adversity, the ones, in order to truly experience what the tens feel like when you win. And so
Yeah.
it's that thing of like, if not, then if we're just in that comfort zone of like 4 to 6s, it's okay. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not too bad. But if we
Yeah.
really, really want to see it, you got to do some hard things and be able to figure out now how do we get through it. And then once you get over that hump, it can really, really
Yeah.
move you forward.
That struggle is what helps make that magic. I
Yeah, it
mean, you
really
go
is.
through that and you make it through to the other side, and it's just everything over there, you appreciate it so much more.
Yeah.
Like when you're starving, you're not really starving,
Oh,
but when you're so hungry, it's like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich could be the best one you've ever had in
I
your
know,
life
right?
because you're
Absolutely.
just so hungry.
Yes,
So
yes,
it's,
I've been
yeah,
there.
it really changes your perception
Yeah,
and
yeah,
changes that perspective. And
yep.
yeah, I get it.
Completely
And
agree.
I completely agree. Completely agree. You got to have the downs so you can have those really good ups
Absolutely.
along with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've done a lot of different things. I mean, you're talking about all the things you decompress. And is there anything that you've wanted a skill or hobby to learn, maybe that you haven't learned yet?
Um, if I could have the one skill or hobby, it'd be to golf well.
Oh, well,
But
okay.
that would be, I'm terrible, but it's okay. I'm not out enough to actually make it anything. I did at one point, I thought that taking mandolin, like learning how to play the mandolin would be great. But I've never, so I tried taking lessons. I don't know how to read music. I never
Oh,
been a music person, but I love, so there's a mandolin player. His name's Chris Thiele. He plays for Nickel Creek and he's phenomenal. Like he's the best of the best. And so of course I'm looking at my instructor like, can I just play like this guy right now? Like
can
he's like, oh,
can
you
I
can't.
just
He's
learn
like, you're
this?
terrible. Like, can you just pluck these 3 notes and just, we could figure that out. So either playing golf really well or playing the mandolin would be the
Yeah,
hobby.
okay. Yeah, I don't, I've never tried playing the mandolin and I suck at golf too. I
Yeah.
go for the
There.
company and I
Yeah.
swing the clubs,
Sure.
but I don't stress over it
Yeah.
because I don't
That's
get out enough
great.
to practice
Yeah.
either. There's
Yes. Right.
Do
Right.
you travel at all? Do you love to go out and travel?
A ton, a ton. Yeah, we did not
Oh,
travel
good.
much whenever we were younger. And so since, we've gotten a little bit older and since our girls are both out of the house, it's just a nice thing to do. My wife and I generally for anniversary in December will try to do a couple day trip to a week-long trip out in Cancun. Um, and then they have the adult, all inclusives out there, which are great. So no little kiddos, anything like that. So those are lovely for us. They do have ones with kids. If you have kids, go for it.
Yeah.
It's all you. But for me,
Yeah, I
it's
prefer not to take my kids on
yeah,
my
yeah,
vacations. There's
yes,
kid vacations and then
yes,
there's
yes,
grown-up ones.
exactly. And what's
Yeah.
cool is we've actually taken our adult kids there now too. So that can actually be pretty fun with your
Yeah.
adult kiddos at a place like that. So it's not
Mine
bad.
are so spread out. It's going to be a while before I can truly do it.
Yeah.
My oldest is turning 20,
Okay.
but I have a 16, a 13, and then we had a surprise little guy. He's 3.
Whoa, holy
So,
cow.
so yeah, so we've got
Yeah.
20 and then we've got 3. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. So, but
Wow.
thankfully he's the sweetest kid
Yeah.
because he has to be, or else I don't know that I could handle it
Right.
again.
Right.
But that's funny. In December, we're actually going to be in Mexico as well. My birthday
Nice.
is in December,
Oh, that's
but we're
amazing.
going on a cruise just to keep it easy because my husband's planning it and he's not a good planner. So he
Oh,
picks cruises, so it's
gotcha.
a little easier for him to
All
plan.
there. Yes, yes.
It's a little
Oh, that's
easier for him to
great.
plan there. So we'll
Yeah.
be out in on a cruise ship though, but we'll be in Mexico in December as well
Very cool.
this
Oh, that's
year.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah, we
Yeah.
like going down there around that time. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, yeah. Well, I don't really know the all-inclusive places. That's something we're gonna have to figure out so that way we
Absolutely.
don't have to be on a ship, but we could still go down.
Stay at a
That
place.
would be
Yeah.
nice. We'll have to figure
Yeah.
that one out, but
Absolutely. No, yeah. And then
yeah,
I go a lot for different conferences or what have you. Will take me through different spots throughout the US.
yeah.
And then last year, my wife and I did Europe for the very first time. So we did London and Paris,
Oh,
a week with each and met with some friends out there. That was just great. And I could not have asked for a better trip.
yeah.
And yeah, it just is constantly trying to figure out. But right now too, with her, in getting into the latter half of law school, it's
For
more just
school.
hold off, like we're in this weird holding pattern right now. And so, yeah, but no, travel's huge for us because in the long run, I'd rather have the experiences over the stuff day in and day out.
Yeah, yeah. I think when you're kind of building up and you're trying to like get your footing with what you want to do career and your life and things, I think at least this was true for me and my husband, you're kind of drawn to the stuff a
Yeah,
bit
yeah,
because it makes you feel like I've made it or I've made it to this point if I can do this
yep,
or that. And same though, we've kind of because I'll be turning 40 this year. But
okay,
I would say probably within the past just couple of years, we've both kind of hit this point of the stuff really just doesn't matter.
yeah,
We want the experiences, not the
mm-hmm,
stuff. I mean, we
right,
kind of have what we have, in our belongings, but it's just the drive is different.
yeah,
So it definitely changes you to the point where yeah, you're making decisions different and the way you want to experience life just totally changes. And but I
yeah,
completely agree. We don't travel near enough. We need to do more,
right,
in my
right,
opinion. Um,
absolutely,
but I think that that's something that we're definitely working toward too. We need more experiences.
sure,
But of course, we got to set back with our little guy, so we
yeah,
can't
yeah,
really do as much. But there, we'll
yeah,
get there. It'll
yes,
be okay.
yes,
Yeah, we'll definitely get there.
uh-huh.
um, where are we? We're really good on everything. Is there anything else before we kind of close things down here? I mean, is there anything else that you would maybe want to promote for your office or you'd want to share about yourself or your business before we head out here?
Yeah, like, I mean, I guess I'd just say, like, I don't have like a product or anything to promote, but I do think
Yeah.
that it's important the things that we're consuming, both in our ears and with our eyes. And so, like you had mentioned quotes or what have you. And so one of the books I came across. So with 75 hard, you have to read 10 pages of a physical self-help book each night. And the first one I read was Jeff Olson's The Slight Edge, which is not out on audio. So it worked perfectly that way. But Jeff had said in his book that Dan Millman's book, Way of the Peaceful Warrior, was one of his favorite books, or it was his favorite book of all time.
Hmm.
And so I listened to that then on my walks outside. And I've probably read and listened to that book now 10 times at least. And I've got certain, tattoos that are kind of like emblematic of that. But Dan in that book has a great quote of, he asked Socrates, the one guru in the book, asked Dan about what time is it, and Dan's like, well, it's about 8:30, and he's like, no, the time is now. And he's like, well, where are you? He's like, well, I'm at the service station. He's like, no, you are here. So the time is always now, and you are always here. And so it's just really important in our day and age, as attorneys, as business professionals, medical care providers, that we stop for a minute and just be present. It's so hard to just be present in the moment, not only present when you're driving, no distracted driving, but like just present when you're around your kids. Because the nice thing, even for you, is you're never going to have that 20-year-old ever again. And you're also
Yeah,
never going to have that 3-year-old ever again, right?
yeah.
This is the last 3-year-old you're ever going to have at this moment in time.
Yeah.
And so to be present, I think, is so vitally important, that it's something to where I've got to constantly work on doing. And then also too, within these high level professions, I do think it's really important what kind of self-talk we use for ourselves. And then
Hmm.
also it's important to give ourselves a little bit of grace, because I
Hmm.
think most of us are out there doing the best that we can. And so just give yourself a little bit of grace. You're doing all right. And that's the only promotion I got for you. That's
Well, that's great. No, I love that. I love that. These are things that are easy to give, but they're hard to give yourself, you
it.
know?
Correct. Yes.
So that's wonderful. Well, I love that. That's a great way to kind of sum that up. I love it. Well, so thank you. Thank you so much, Chris, for
Definitely.
talking to me today and for sharing your insights. And
Absolutely.
truly, truly enjoyed it. So thank you. And I look forward to hopefully staying connected. Um,
Definitely.
by any means, just it would be wonderful if we could stay connected. And I look forward to that.
Perfect. Thank you so much.